Stop scrolling. Did you know that there is a much better way to lower your stress, boost your energy, and even sleep better? Today, we are with Nelia Freitas, a breathwork specialist. She's going to reveal to you secrets that your doctor probably doesn't even know about. Welcome to the Haroon Rabbani podcast, Nelia Freitas.
Thank you very much, Haroon. Nice to be here. Glad to be back.
So tell me, breathing is something that we all do. Otherwise, we're kind of like in our coffin, right? Why is breathwork so important?
There's many reasons that breathwork is important, but one of the main reasons that I teach it, and it's always part of what I do with my clients, is that people tend to shallow breathe for long periods of time. We walk around shallow breathing all the time. Our body naturally knows how to breathe and what to do. But because of the stress that we are under and the stress that sort of society builds up within each individual, we then find ourselves shallow breathing, not really using our full lung capacity, and therefore depriving our organs, primarily our brain, from oxygen. So then we feel more tired. There's conditions where, our heart rate and our blood pressure gets affected by the shallow breathing and not actually building our lung capacity. So the breath work is really about helping people to slow down the breath and to breathe more deeply so that we are, in essence, building our lung capacity and oxygenating more of our organs on a regular basis so that we actually feel better.
A few years back, when I was working with, especially people with type 2 diabetes, one particular client, and he's shared the testimonial, so he's happy with this. His name is Emilio. Now, when I found out about his heart rates, it was absolutely sky high. We're talking about 145 beats a minute when he was resting. It just reminded me of the hummingbirds, which are absolutely gorgeous little creatures. But because they breathe so fast, their lifespans are short. So actually, I didn't tell him at the time, but he was coming to the very precipice of some major breakdown in his body. What is it that you did? Because I actually asked you to work with him directly to actually change things. So what is it that you did with him that created the big shift that he needed?
The first thing I did with him was to actually work out how many breaths per minute he was, unaware of how many breaths he was breathing per minute. And we found out that just 1 minute calculation, we worked out that his breaths per minute were actually quite high. That kind of coincided with his very high heart rate, resting heart rate. And so we were genuinely concerned over the fact that he was a walking time bomb for a heart attack, because it was something tangible he could follow. Yeah, he could test himself. He could work out, put a 1 minute timer and work out on a regular basis what the breaths per minute were. And so what I got him to do was to then practice a ratio breathing that allows him to slow himself down. So it took into account the inhalation, the exhalation, and it brought in a pause, which is an extension of our normal breath rate. So most people generally breathe, so the inhale is roughly about 2 seconds. The exhale is roughly about 3 seconds, like within, milliseconds. Obviously, this differs between person to person. And then the pause, which is kind of the reset for the diaphragm. Yeah. A 1 second pause. So that's a hold in our breath. Our body naturally does this. Yeah. Involuntary.
Isn't this the kind of like borderline of getting to an anxiety attack?
Yes, it can be. If people are breathing very quickly, they tend to shallow breathe. And that just means that, it's all up here, up in the upper chest. And yes, they can feel like they're having a bit of a panic attack. And so it's then really important for them to be mindful and try and slow down their breath, even just a little bit can help them come out of that panic attack. But yes, so the technique that I taught Emilio was in essence a method to help him slow down his breathing consciously. And he did this consistently on a daily basis. He was regularly practicing it. And over the couple of weeks that he did this, so it wasn't, months and months and months. We're talking weeks of practice that allowed him to go from a very high resting heart rate to a normal heart rate.
Just to give clarity to people about his heart rate, you don't have to be a scientist. Let me just give you clarity. So I'm not super fit, but I'm fit enough. When I'm running on the treadmill and I'm really pushing it, at the highest level I get to, my heart rate, because they've got these little monitors on there, they're on the grips, my heart rate gets to 170, 165, 175. And then when I walk towards the end, so I'm cooling down, still walking rather than running, my breath rates, my body hasn't calmed down until it's below 140. This is not resting heart rate. This is just coming towards the end of the treadmill workout. Emilio's was higher than that. But by the time he finished, because we both worked on him, but Nelia specifically worked on him on the breath work, by the time we finished, in the matter of weeks, he brought it all the way down to 71 beats per minute, and that's with moderate activity. And in fact, since then, he's brought it below 70, which is he's not an athlete by any shape or any means, but it is a very healthy heart rate, certainly compared to the others. So let's dive a bit deeper, Nelia, because you mentioned the word stress. There are two types of stresses. There's the big stresses. Oh my God, I'm moving home. Got a new job. We've done that. Started a new business, having a child, getting married. But that's not the big stresses, is it? Tell us about the chronic stress that a lot of, especially our elders, by the way, deny it exists. But tell me about chronic stress and how that is impacting people's breathing.
The chronic stress is the everyday small little cumulative things that we do on a regular basis. And so that it could be just fulfilling timetables, meetings, things like trying to sort out the family. For women, it tends to be a very common thing because they're looking after the kids, they're looking after the home, they're out working, and they're having to do all these things. And if they're also doing physical activities outside of the home, all of that is cumulative stress. And then you add to that the environment that you live in. So if you live in a city and you're driving around, everyone's aware that sort of driving in very populated areas can be stressful. So it's a cumulative combination of a home environment and external environment.
So a lot of it's environmental, of course, that you mentioned. Could be people in your environment, which is a very big one, especially if you've got toxic relationships or challenging relationships. But there's another one. So one of the other interviews I do is with Dr. Ali Ajaz. We talk about neurodiversity, particularly ADHD. As an example, I don't know if I should even bring it up. I was talking to one of my family members, and I'd already dealt with a very stressful situation somewhere else. But then when she was speaking to me, it was non-stop giving her opinion about stuff. And it's not a matter of whether I agree or not. I'm like, I don't want to hear anybody's anything. I just need that break. So I literally had to go out in the garden and just to get myself away from the environment. And it's not that anyone's bad. It's just that everyone sees the world through their own lenses and nobody else's. And I have to say, in many respects, everyone to some degree or other is narcissistic in that sense. They only see the world through their own eyes rather than imagining, I wonder what this person is experiencing. And even when you're thinking, I wonder what this person is experiencing, also can lead into low level stress. So chronic stress, without going deeper into that, I just want to mention one other thing is it's things we take for granted, which takes us away from the essence of our true nature. So is one of the core underlying symptoms of type 2 diabetes and many, many other diseases. How does someone with poor breathing techniques or breathing patterns, how does that affect their sleep?
People can have sleep issues. If we're talking about the 40s to 50-year-olds who might also be going through menopause or hormone changes, and the sleep, the quality of sleep can change because obviously our hormones are deeply connected to our ability to sleep. But then if the breath work is not there and their shallow breathing continues, the sleep issues can also become chronic, and people can develop things like sleep apnea and other sleep disorders. So it is really crucial to learn how to breathe more deeply and be aware that, these are things that you can do yourself. But obviously, if you don't know how, you can be taught how.
Can you break down what happens when you inhale and what happens when you exhale? And yeah, obviously, for those who are watching and listening, they're probably having a joke and a laugh and saying, yeah, of course, when you inhale, you're breathing in oxygen. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the nervous system. Tell us a bit more about the nervous system, how that is impacted by the inhalation and the exhalation.
As you inhale, if you are breathing in sort of normally, so obviously your chest expands slightly, and the breath is going into your lungs, and that's spreading out through the lungs, and the lungs are then transferring that and converting that. So it's I'm being very basic here in terms of what's happening in the lungs, and that's obviously then being distributed through the circulatory system throughout the body. And one of the areas, obviously, that's quite crucial is the brain. So the nervous system gets that oxygen via the blood through the circulatory system. If we're shallow breathing, we're not giving our lungs and the respiratory system the interaction with the circulatory system a lot of time for all of this to happen. So as we breathe more deeply, we are allowing for more of that to happen within a shorter space of time. So in the exhalation, we are actually releasing air from the lungs, from the body, what we need to get rid of. So in yogic practices, obviously the inhalation is bringing in the life, the nurturing breath that we need. The exhalation is about letting go. It's associated with letting go of that which we no longer need. So if we think about, we have to exhale. And if we're exhaling really shallow and short breath, we're not really getting rid of everything that we need to get rid of, to be able to then allow ourselves to de-stress, to sleep better, to reduce the heart rate, blood pressure, all of these things. So, and then there's the pause, which is a natural pause that happens. It's kind of like our, intercostal muscles, right? Because the expansion is in the rib cage, and the muscles that work that area, to kind of reset for the inhalation to happen again. And that pause is really important. In yogic practices, the pause are really about being in that present moment state of awareness. A lot of people don't stop long enough to be present. They're either running around trying to do something for the future, or in their heads, their minds are sort of going 100 miles a minute on what's happened or what they haven't done yet and what's on their to-do list still to do. So allowing the breath to lengthen and being in the pause can actually give that person an opportunity to be present.
For those of you who got scientific mindsets kind of thing, and for those of you who haven't, just bear with me. When you're pausing, you're also allowing the accumulation of carbon dioxide. So when we've got a lot of carbon dioxide in our body, our natural thing is to try to exhale it. However, this is what I've found when I've looked, I'm not a scientist, by the way, but I like to read science. When I've looked at the science, what happens is when you've got a lot of carbon dioxide, you have a tendency to want to exhale it and exhale it fast, which replicates anxiety. If you're not used to having carbon dioxide in your system for long, then you're going to be very, very reactive to it. So that pause, as it gets lengthened over time, in other words, as you practice, it gets you used to dealing in those situations where your carbon dioxide is building up, which then replicates in real life that you end up managing anxiety far better. Isn't that amazing that we have the tools within us to deal with things that most people go and pay therapists for? So talk to us about the sympathetic nervous system, Nelia, and the parasympathetic nervous system. Or I can talk about it as well.
By deepening the breath practice, so by going into deeper breath work, in essence, what we are doing is we are triggering the parasympathetic nervous system. So when we're shallow breathing and we're running around trying to get ABC done, we are in essence running on the sympathetic nervous system. So obviously the nervous system has these two parts. The sympathetic nervous system is more of the flight and fright side of the nervous system, so that what we're getting is the energy, the cortisol being pumped into the body to get all those things done. If our bodies are then consistently running on this sympathetic nervous system, we're pushing ourselves to the point of exhaustion, because we can only do that for so long. The body needs to recover, and there's always balance needed. And this is where the parasympathetic system comes in. And by engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, by bringing that part in, we are in essence recovering ourselves from the stress, from the cortisol influx.
It's like the universe, Star Wars fan, it's like the universe needs to have its balance. So where you have the light side, there's a dark side, except this isn't light or dark. But this is a matter of like, okay, your body needs to recover. You know what? In the olden days, thousands of years ago, or even hundreds of years ago, you would be in this sympathetic nervous system for a few minutes at a time. Go and watch nature. Go and watch a herd of gazelles. And when there's a lion or lioness, usually they do the hard work, right? The lioness is on the scene. They will chase that gazelle for a few minutes until they capture it. And the gazelles, the rest of them, will continue running. And what will happen is one will be dinner and the others, they'll go back to chewing grass, peeing, pooing, mating, or whatever it is that they do. But they drop their sympathetic nervous system activities pretty soon after that. Humans, we've just mastered the art of being in that sympathetic nervous system, that fight, flight, or freeze space, most of our waking hours, because we're stressed about everything. We're thinking about the future, worrying about the past, worrying about what other people are thinking about you. Well, I should do this. I must do this. I couldn't do this. I must do that. We're always in that space. And so, as Nelia mentioned, when you're doing that, you need to balance it out. So the amount of energy required for your sympathetic nervous system, it needs a lot of parasympathetic, rest, digest, recuperate, regenerate, heal. You need quite a bit of time compared to this. But if you're in this system all the time, there's not enough hours in the day for you to balance it out. And this is one of the reasons why we have our retreat. For anyone who knows me for years, they know that since 2013, I've been doing running 27, 28 different retreats. And I've never brought in anyone specifically to assist or support or co-facilitate. But I brought in Nelia and I asked her to join and co-facilitate that. But here's one of the reasons. Meditation is a very important practice in my retreats, in our retreat now. Meditation is very important because it truly is life-changing. But Nelia, tell me, what happens if someone meditates, but they're not really breathing properly? if they're not breathing correctly? What's really going on?
If they're meditating but they're not breathing properly, then chances are they're not really meditating, because the breath practice is in essence an integral part of a meditation practice. And so by being mindful, you're then being mindful of not just where you are, your presence, but your actual breath brings you to the state of meditation. So it is really important to do that. And it can be as simple as just slowing down the breath and just taking a couple of settling in breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, just to jumpstart the practice of meditation. But then meditation is about that present state of awareness, and all you need to, you don't have to do anything fancy. It's just noticing the breath. And for some people, that could be the first time that they do it, it could make them somewhat on edge and anxious, because all of a sudden, for the first time, they're realizing, oh my goodness, they are breathing really fast. And and so it's okay. It's just okay to acknowledge that at the moment your breath rate is perhaps faster than you want to acknowledge or want to be in right now. But if you in fact take time over noticing where you are, noticing the temperature of the area that you're in, noticing how your body is feeling that moment in time, it eventually starts to bring you into that space of being a bit more calm and okay with where you are and that present moment state. Gradually, over time, with practice, and we're talking like within a day or two, you can start to shift that.
So one thing I noticed, by the way, in case anyone's wondering why is Haroon's room so dark, it's not that my room is dark. It's just that it's been so sunny over the last couple of weeks. And I was at the retreat. I've gotten dark, so I'll make the whole room look dark now. So yeah, brown people get browner and black people as well, just to let you know. Um, there's a beauty though about meditation earlier, which there's one thing. So I've led well over 500 live guided meditations, not to mention the recorded ones. And there's magic it's a bit like, with the yoga, when you get a group of people in the same room, it's like an orchestra. When you have one person playing a musical instrument, that's one thing. But then you get a whole group of people playing, even if it's the same musical instrument, but obviously everyone's instrument is their body. You end up with this orchestral maneuvers in the dark. No, orchestral music. So one of the things that I've seen people shift really quickly at my retreats is the fact that when I take them through various exercises, then the rhythmic flow of one person somehow magically affects the rhythmic flow of everyone else. Now, without teasing anyone any further, will you be kind enough to share a very simple, basic yogic breath or breathing exercise that people can do at home? We'll talk more about it, but I know that many of our viewers and listeners are probably asking, come on, get on with it. Show me something. So please show us something.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. We can do something called the diaphragmatic or the yogic breath, which is just a gentle way of deepening the breath and really engaging the diaphragm. So if you just sit up nicely, and if you are sitting in a chair, just allow your feet to be flat on the ground. If you're on your bed, then allow your legs to be either stretched out or crossed, whatever feels comfortable for you. If you just take a moment now, closing your eyes and just take a nice deep breath in through the nose. And as you take that breath in through the nose, you're allowing your chest to fill, and then just release it. Release it out through the mouth. So that we are just settling into our breath. And do another one of these or two. Yeah, inhaling through the nose. Slowly, gently. And as you do, You feel the expansion of the rib cage now. And then exhale fully. And again on the next breath, inhaling through the nose, opening up into the chest, opening up into the rib cage, feeling more of the belly fill now with the breath. As you inhale, filling the lungs, and then exhale. Brilliant. And now we're going to inhale and exhale just through the nose. So keeping the mouth gently closed, teeth just soft. On the next inhalation, I want you to slowly, gently, deeply now inhale, filling the lungs, engaging the rib cage, filling the belly, and without straining, so let it go through the nose, slowly, as though you were letting the air from a balloon go out really slowly, rather than allowing it to just jump out through the room.
So I think it's important that so if you go back to normal breathing now, I think that's a very good point, Nelia, because I've seen a lot of people, what they do is if you breathe in for 4, for example, they'll go and then they'll hold their breath for 4 and then they and then they wonder why they're feeling sick at the end of it. So it's all about gentleness. So a lot of the people who come to our retreat, the age varies. It varies from late 20s all the way. I've had people in their 60s, but the average age is anything between 35 and 55. It doesn't mean younger people don't come. I've had very young people. Doesn't mean older people don't come, but there's an average group. Well, first of all, that particular group, of course, men and women, 45 to 55 more so, menopausal, perimenopausal era of their life. For men, it might be andropausal. So, things are shifting. I'm talking about hormones are shifting.
Hormone changes, yep.
Yeah. So are there particular exercises breathing exercises maybe they want to avoid, or exercises that they should be doing? Any breathing techniques? We don't have to go over the techniques, but just if you can give some examples.
Well, some of the practices that I would highly recommend, so other than the one that I've just taught, which is the yogic diaphragmatic breathing, and that's something they can do any time throughout the day. So they can do that practice in the morning, middle of the day, if they're feeling, a bit of a slump, or are preparing to go to sleep. It's a really good breath to actually help you improve your sleep. So very simple, as you could see. It's just about being more gentle. There's another practice that I love to do with people, which also has loads of research to support its effectiveness, to reduce blood pressure, reduce stress, improve motor skills, as well as cognitive function. And it's called nadi shodana, which is a Sanskrit name for alternative nostril breathing. Now, alternative nostril breathing is so powerful because it allows you to bring right and left brain hemispheres into a state of, what I call is homeostasis. Basically, it brings balance into the body. So if you're very right brain oriented or left brain oriented, that means the other hemisphere of your brain is not engaged as much. And what this breath practice does is it brings the two into harmony, and it helps to clear blockages in the body. And so, the alternate nostril breathing is definitely something that I would recommend, because if you're going through all those hormonal changes, our bodies are being kind of, put into somewhat of an imbalance. And so breath work that can help you come back to balance would be really ideal. And again, you can do this in the morning and before going to bed.
Is it just me, or do other people find that out of the two nostrils, one of them might be more blocked than the other? And sometimes I even feel like it's not always the same nostril, or is it just me?
No, it's not. In fact, most people are not aware that they predominantly breathe through one nostril versus the other. We don't breathe through both nostrils at all times. And so using the alternate nostril breath technique can actually help to clear sinuses as well. There's been research to show that people who do suffer from some kind of sinus conditions, that doing this breath practice can help to alleviate, and in some cases, help to clear sinus conditions. But it also, like I said, there's a lot of research to show its effectiveness on reducing blood pressure and reducing the heart rate as well. So it is a practice that I then follow with the yogic breath, the diaphragmatic breathing, when I teach.
Some people's brains are active. I can't think of anyone right this second. And so, and the hyperactivity goes into late at night and it won't stop. I can't think of any neurodiverse people who have that issue. But anyway, is there any particular type of breathing technique they can use to calm their nerves, calm their brain? In other words, slow them down, especially before going to sleep. Sometimes my creativity goes through the roof, especially when I'm writing, I'm working on my book and so on. I will get such creative flow and I'm like, I can't move from here. I need to finish it. In fact, that's not even a conversation in my head. Then it's like, I look at the clock, I'm like, oh my God, it's 1 a.m. and I'm still here. So yes, is anything?
Yes, I mean the breath work, the nadi shodana is obviously very useful, but if you've used it and you found it not to help you, then you can use what's called the ratio breathing, because what it then starts to do, the ratio breathing means that you're counting your breath, so it's engaging your brain, and it's not allowing, you can't be counting and thinking about all the things that haven't happened yet or are going to happen. If you're engaged in counting the breath. So the ratio breath, and one of them is box breathing, where they're equal amounts. So that could be quite simple for people to do. So you breathe in for 4, a count of 4 seconds, hold for a count of 4 seconds, breathe out for a count of 4 seconds, and hold at the end of that count for 4 seconds. So it's like a box, and you can just follow that. And then as it becomes easier, so if a hold for 4 and a count for 4 on the in and the out is simple, you can just up that to 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, and you can just increase it by 1 second. In Sanskrit, it's called samavriti breath or pranayama. The holds, the retentions can be tricky for some people. That's why I suggest always keep it simple. A count of 4 is a very achievable for most people. And if that's really difficult because of, if you've got asthma, or if you find that, your breathing is so shallow that you can't do that, then start with 2 or 3 and then work up to 4. The retention is called kumbhaka. So there's the hold on the in breath and the hold on the out breath. There is also another practice where the hold is only on the out breath. And this is called the baya kumbhaka. So it's the hold after you exhale. And that's the one that I like to teach once you've been practiced at doing the box breathing, because you're inhaling for 4, for example, exhale for 6, and then you're holding for 2 seconds, and you just repeat.
Oh, that's ratio breathing. You call it box breathing, yeah, but you're talking about ratio breathing.
Yes. So this ratio breathing is the baya kumbhaka, which is the hold is on the exhalation only. So you inhale. From my experience with my clients, is that it sort of assimilates the actual natural rhythm of our own breath. Yeah, we inhale, exhale, and then there's a gentle pause. So it's the 2-3-1 ratio of the involuntary breathing. And so what we're doing is we're doubling that. So by doubling it, we go 4-6-2. By tripling it, we go 6-9-3. And so you can see you're going up by 2-3-1, 2-3-1. And you can go as high as the sky is the limit. People who are well practiced in this can get into their 20s in terms of in for 20, out for 26, and you're holding for like 10. It's really quite incredible.
I have to say, with my practice, at some point, I did get to that. So basically 1 minute for one breath. It's absolutely, it's an achievement itself, but you've got to do it just to emphasize it's not meant to be done as if you're trying to do press ups.
It needs to be a very relaxed practice, and it's a build up. And remembering that some of my yoga clients who have been doing yoga practices with me, a lot of them have been doing it for years, and the fact that they can get to 14, 21 and 7 is an achievement, and that means that they've increased their lung capacity quite significantly. And able to, so much changes in the body, the relaxation, they're more resilient in, their physical state and their emotional state, and they sleep better.
To me, it's the most mind-blowing thing because I've learned it from you, this stuff, right? I've done yoga for years, but really you've taken it to another. I've not met loads of yoga teachers. I've not met anyone who's taken it in such a rounded, scientific backed way as well. One of the things I've found, a number of things, what I've found is, so the box breathing, for example, when I go into the sauna and the temperature is at 80 degrees Celsius, I don't know what that's in Fahrenheit, way over 100. I'll do the box breathing. And here's what happens. If I can do the box breathing normally, in for four, out for four, in for four, hold, out for four, hold, and I'm present, it's quite comfortable. But when I'm doing that and I'm thinking of something else, it causes me anxiety. And that for me is a good training exercise to actually be able to be more present. So the anxiety forces me because I'm self-aware. I'm like, oh, yeah, you shouldn't be thinking about something else. Stay with the breath. And so what that's done, and if you know any of my family members from, like from when I was a kid, they'll tell you, like, I know some people won't believe it, but this guy's so calm and diplomatic and handles stuff. It's because when we get anxious in our head because of something or other, or we get stressed, our breathing is the first thing that shifts. The fact that we take ownership of our breathing, it means you have a lower propensity to getting anxious. So if you suffer from anxiety issues, depression issues, all of these things, it helps. But then there's the other thing. Whenever I've practiced these techniques you've shown me, Nelia, and trained me in, whenever I've practiced that consistently, I'm physically healthy. But whenever I'm ill or unwell, there's a direct correlation. I've not been practicing. You're a yoga therapist and yoga teacher amongst, as well as breathing, because the breathing technique came from there. What role in the yoga movements, I'm doing martial arts movements for those watching, it actually does apply there as well. So what role does the breath work play in yogic practice? So the traditional yogic practice and any other practices?
Hands down, breath work and the breath practice is by far the most important part of a yoga practice. And I teach that to all of my yoga students, and I've been teaching that over the last couple of decades that I've been teaching it, and going back through the ancient practices of yoga and what they actually were. The breath work was integral part. So a lot of the sort of Western world tend to, put a focus on the physical practices, the movement being yoga. And actually, yoga is so much more than just exercise. Yoga is a way of being. And if we are being stressed, then we are not coming into our full essence of ourselves. And the breath work puts us in connection with that very essence that we are trying to open up within ourselves. So the breath work itself is the most important part of a yoga practice. And so to open a practice, to learn how to move through the posture, you need to be breathing through it properly. So a lot of people tend to over focus on getting the posture right. But if the breath isn't properly done, or if you're not properly breathing into the posture, the joint seizes up, the muscles seize up, and you can't achieve or go into that movement or that posture work, safely. to be honest, you need to make sure that when you go into movement, the breath is going with it. So the inhalation and the exhalation coincide with the movement. And it's very, very important to make sure you're not holding your breath when you're doing this. And I've seen this in, quite a few, and myself included. I would have been up, in the early days of learning yoga when I was at uni, and it was like, trying to get it right. And actually, over time, I've learned very much so that the breath is what you need, and then the movement flows with it. So the movement with the breath just flows and allows for everything to be just as it needs to be.
As a former kickboxing champion, and most importantly, in context of this, as a kung fu practitioner, the mindset was very much that the breath carry your body rather than the body carry your breath. So it's your energy moving your body, whether it's qigong or traditional or Shaolin type of kung fu. It is the breath that does that. So one of the things I love taking people to is nature walks and forest bathing. Does breathing techniques have a role to play in that, and why?
Absolutely. I mean, when we start going into the breathing aspect, the breathing techniques, what we're in essence doing is we're tapping into our energy body. And from a yogic perspective, we talk about prana and the movement of prana. It's been said that there's over 72,000 nadis in the body. These are energy channels. They're not visible. It's kind of like, we know electricity is there, but we can't actually see it. And so when you're forest bathing and you're going through the woods and you're going with this awareness with the breath, in essence, what you're doing is you are also connecting to the energy of all living things, trees, shrubs, flowers, and that is connecting to your own energy itself. So these pathways and these channels, in essence, this prana life force energy is being connected to the life force energy all around us. And this is why walking in nature, forest bathing is such a beneficial practice.
Are there any contraindications for breath work? So in other words, are there specific people with specific conditions that maybe should avoid any kind of breath work?
So the breath practices that I've spoken of today they are safe for anyone to practice. There are some other practices that I haven't mentioned yet, like Kapalabhati pranayama, it's also known as the breath of fire. There will be some precautions. Obviously women who are pregnant shouldn't be practicing this breath. People who have high blood pressure, I would caution practicing Kapalabhati. Doesn't mean that they will never be able to practice it. I would just get them doing the practices that we've already spoken of first and get themselves into a state where they can bring their blood pressure down, their heart rate down, before then engaging in breath practices that actually increase energy levels and affect the metabolic rate.
So you basically, you will not do Kapalabhati before you go to bed, just to let you know.
Correct.
So what, how is it that Kapalabhati is so helpful for someone with type 2 diabetes? But of course, they've not got high blood pressure. So how does it benefit them and why?
Well, Kapalabhati is this amazing practice that has been shown to increase the metabolic rate of the body. So if you're doing this, and like you rightly said, it is meant to be practiced in the daytime, in the morning, preferably, because it is an energizing breath. And it also increases the metabolic rate. So people who are suffering from type 2 diabetes and other metabolic syndrome conditions, then this kind of breath can be a way of actually exercising the abdominal area without causing much issue to spine. So a lot of people who perhaps have mobility issues and can't get, their heart rates going or the metabolic rate going, then this is a practice definitely for them.
We know that emotions, massage, certain movements brings up stuff. All my retreats, by the way, bring up stuff. That's the whole point of bringing up stuff. From your perspective, and it might not be breath work, but if, say, you are triggering deep underlying stuff for people emotionally, how do you deal with those kind of situations? Or do you just ignore it?
We don't ignore it, but we also think that we need to give people a chance to deal with those issues in their own way. So for some people, they want to talk about it. For some people, they want some quiet time, perhaps, to recover from that and maybe be with the grief, the sadness, the emotion, whatever the emotion that is brought up. Each individual will deal with those emotions in their own way. And the good thing to reassure people is that if they do need someone to speak to, then we're there to support them through that journey. But equally well, if they need the space and the time to go over things themselves, then they get given that as well. So they're able to be with themselves, be in that moment, be in the silence. And it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel grief. And sometimes it's just letting them know they've got permission to feel that. Yeah.
I think it's definitely worth doing an entire episodes on emotional and letting go and releasing, because that's something very big. That's a massive part of what we do. So let's talk about Annie, by the way, because Annie was somebody who, again, came to me because she had type 2 diabetes. One of the things we're working on was her weight, but the other thing she had, we didn't know at the time, well, until she told us, of course, that she'd been on strong steroid inhalers for her asthma for over 20 years. Tell us what you did with her. You remember Annie, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What kind of exercises helped her? Because they're all different. If you take one asthmatic, you might need one exercise. For another one, you might need other exercises. What did you do with her? And then we'll talk about the results.
With Annie, it was also about looking at her breath rate and what her breath rate was in terms of like 1 minute counts. And again, hers were very shallow and very short. And we were able to talk her through and explaining to her that being able to then breathe more deeply, she might be able to also reduce her anxiety levels. So with Annie, I focused on the diaphragmatic breathing because I wanted to keep it very simple for her, trying to get her to count and to do all these other things. As an asthmatic who, obviously can be triggered by anxiety, I wanted to keep things as simple as possible for her and achievable. So we did a lot of work around this yogic breath and the diaphragmatic breathing. And it was so effective to reduce her stress, to make her feel more calm, and that her anxiety levels were not so easily triggered. She managed and she was very consistent, daily practices. So within a week of her working with me, she'd already seen a difference even in her sleeping pattern. And then within a few weeks of working with me, she was able to drop her inhaler. An inhaler that she'd been dependent on for a few decades. And she was able to just breathe normally and find that in actual fact, she didn't need to rely on this inhaler anymore to breathe for herself.
And
And phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal.
just to clarify, for legal reasons, a big disclaimer, we do not give medical advice. Even if we were medical doctors, we are not giving you medical advice. This is for education and entertainment purposes. And also the retreat, in fact, I do work with doctors. I've had plenty of doctors and psychologists, as in PhDs, were coming to my retreats. And one of the things is we don't give medical advice. What we do is we help adjust lifestyle, adjust, not transform completely, lifestyle behaviors, the way you treat your mind, the way your relationship with your mind, your relationship with your body, your relationship with your emotions, and the environment beyond yourself. So yes, Annie dropped her inhaler after 20 years. By the way, she's in her.
That, yeah, that was her choice. She chose to do that. I never advised her, but she herself found that she needed it less and less. She actually found that she didn't need it as much. I mean, I had another student who was a nurse. She was actually a practitioner nurse who was using inhalers, and she herself found that by doing the breath practice as part of her yoga practices on a daily basis was really what helped her find that she didn't need to use her inhaler as much either. So it's not just one person. I've seen this through quite a number of my clients who, obviously they do the yoga practices, but again, I couldn't stress enough, the breath work is the most important part of the yoga practices.
If you're somebody listening in and you've been listening to all the content we've been talking about, the retreat isn't just about people who've got issues with their, I don't know, asthma or some kind of super horrendous condition. And we have that. We've had people with MS come. We've had people with mobility issues come, and they've all benefited. And in fact, one of my retreats, Nelia came and I asked her, would she lead the yoga? And I just wanted to sit back and watch. And man, she's a damn good teacher. That's all I can say. And this is why we've pursued this avenue. But what I want to also say is this, that if you think you've got it all right, as in you haven't got any stresses, you haven't got any stuff going on in your life that maybe needs work on, then congratulations, you have achieved Buddhahood. But if you haven't achieved Buddhahood, let us know if you want to join the retreat, and we'll see if there's any more spaces for you. Nelia, let's leave with a final message for yourself regarding breath work. Is there one last message you want to share? Because I can't believe we're running out of time. In fact, we're probably over time anyway.
Yes, I mean, it's to quite simply, just breathe. Just breathe. Yeah. If everything's going helter skelter and you're pulling your hair out, just take a moment to sit back and take a few deep breaths and let it all go.
My name is Haroon Rabbani. You've watched myself and Nelia Freitas in conversation, and I have to say, the only time I'll stop breathing is when I'm about to go into my coffin. So otherwise, I'm going to continue listening to Nelia's advice. Thank you. You've been watching the Haroon Rabbani podcast, and we will see you next week. Probably another 2 episodes out there with myself and Nelia and Dr. Ali Ajaz and lots more other videos. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you at the retreat. Details in the description. Bye for now.